I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why I think Wisconsin football could legitimately be in trouble this year. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really do appreciate you for tuning in, being every day or making this one of your first listens. Thank you for that. Today's episode, we are talking a little back and forth. We have a great guest on. We're going to go a little back and forth on reasons for concern and then talk about why that concern is valid or not. We got Curtis Holland jumping on, grandson of Badgers great, former Badgers great Lou Holland. Curtis, I like this idea. You came up with it. I'm going to throw some concerns I have about the Badgers football team this year, the season this year. And this, I think, canvases a lot of what Badger fans think, a lot of what their concerns are as well. The first one I got is, dude, the schedule is, to me, legitimately brutal. And I've seen some fans start to push back a little bit. Well, maybe Michigan's not that hard because to me, maybe Underwood isn't going to be ready, or maybe Illinois was a flash in the pan. Maybe Indiana was a flash in the pan. You still got to go to Bama. You still got to play Ohio State. You still got to go to Autzen. Michigan is still a tough game. And all those games are clumped together. And then you have an Iowa who beat you by 32 last year. You still have an Indiana. You still have an Illinois. You still have a Minnesota. I also think Washington's kind of sneaky. Their quarterback is kind of interesting, former four-star kid. I just think the schedule's legitimately brutal. And I'm a little surprised that some Badger fans are starting to push back on that.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump in this like last year. We dove in the deep end with our 12-0 predictions, right? Now, for those who actually stayed and watched the video, that was not my honest predictions. But, at the same time, I made a case. And, when I look at this schedule, too, I think there is a case to be made that we can have a great season this year. But it is going to be tricky. It's going to be very difficult. Going to Alabama, that's not going to be easy. Going to Oregon, that's not going to be easy. Those are two incredibly difficult road challenges. Michigan, I've been to Michigan Stadium. Its environment is, they won a title, so they think they're hot shit now. But, at the end of the day, I don't think that it's anything crazy like we haven't seen before when it comes to away night games. In fact, the Purdue night game environment from 2 years ago was equally as crazy as what I've seen Michigan get up to. So, but all things considered, when you look at the way the schedule sets up to us, we do have two fortuitous breaks that help us kind of at the 1/3 and 2/3 mark of the season. That can help us get healthy, help us make sure that our players are rotating well and getting good rest. Traveling to Alabama, it's a noon game, sleepy noon game. This is coming off of them playing Florida State, right? Another very difficult game for them. So, the hope is that we can come into that game maybe a little bit under-respected. This is one of the first seasons. I know you mentioned a lot of times in the past, Wisconsin, going into the season, has had hype pressed on them. They're favorites from the West. They're going to be a perennial bowl team. Well, this is kind of the first year teams are going to be looking at them like, was Wisconsin really that good? I mean, you look at the national media, that's kind of what people say. And so we might be able to catch somebody sleeping. You catch Alabama half asleep at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, maybe a little bit sleepwalking, maybe still figuring out some kinks in their own quarterback, whoever that's going to be, right? So we might have a chance.
Add something right there to that one, because you're right. They play Florida State to kick off the season. And then you know who they play after us? They play Georgia. Just throwing it out there. Now they have a bye.
It's at Georgia.
They have a bye between that, but I'm just throwing it out there. College kids will look ahead, and they're going to have Georgia looming. They're not going to look at Wisconsin as the biggest threat in the world. I think your point has validity there.
Yeah, and you catch them sleeping, you catch them not all the way there, right? The hype won't be nearly as what it was for, if we were to play them at night, something like that. This might be an opportunity where we can actually say, thank you, Fox. Thanks for hooking us up with that time slot. That actually plays in our benefit. Michigan, if you look at Michigan, I think they're going to be a very difficult team, but they are replacing 3 NFL D linemen. We cannot overstate that, right? Their defensive line showed significant drop-off last year when they had to go to their backups. In fact, most of the time when people scored on Michigan last year was against their backups. Mm-hmm. And we watched Illinois beat that team. We watched them lose to Washington in a game they really shouldn't have lost that game. So they're vulnerable. We can get them. And you're still working with, again, potentially a freshman quarterback. Granted, he's got all the skills and the talent in the world, but he's a freshman. We have no idea how he's going to respond in a game environment like that. And they're also coming off a long road trip the week before, right? So we have an opportunity to catch them napping off of bye, no less, right? You get Ohio State at home. Ohio State replaces everybody. Their whole roster is basically getting turned over, right? They're
But
starting Julian.
they don't replace Jeremiah Smith or Caleb Downs, though. And the guys that get replaced are replaced with 4 and 5-star guys.
Well, let's think about this. And I'm not trying. I don't want people to think I'm downplaying Jeremiah Smith or Caleb Downs. Jeremiah Smith's probably the best football player in the country next year,
He's ridiculous.
and Caleb Downs is probably the best safety in the country next year. So I'm not downplaying these guys. But here's the thing: someone's got to throw it to Jeremiah Smith, right?
Yep.
And then Caleb Downs is safety, right? So here's the thing: this is what I like about this setup. One, it's at home. That's huge for us. Two, Jeremiah Smith, right? He'll probably be a little bit battle tested by then, but again, he's still first year starting, right? Still in a big hostile road environment, in the Big Ten, right? A little bit different than Texas.
You're talking about Julian. You mentioned Jeremiah Smith.
I'm sorry, I meant Julian Sayin.
I know who you're. I just want to
they're both JS. I don't know.
I knew who you meant. I just didn't want the comments to blow up on it.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. But big road environment in the Big Ten. Okay, it's funny actually. I had a cousin. My cousin went to University of Texas, and when he had his bachelor party, they actually came up to Madison for a football game, and he brought all his Texas friends from Austin, and they were shocked at how live Camp Randall was in comparison to Texas Stadium. So that's going to be a true road test for Julian Sayin, right? And so, again, they replace everybody. They replace their whole D-line. They replace, most of their offense outside of, again, the best player in the country, but you still got to get him the ball, right? So, I think that's a really good opportunity for us to really jump on a team that maybe is still rebuilding itself while immensely talented, right? And so then you get Iowa at home. That's a revenge spot for us. I see no reason why we can't go toe-to-toe with Iowa. Last year, in my opinion, at least based on the last, 20 Iowa games I've been to, was an anomaly. And so I think that's an opportunity for us to get some revenge, finally get our trophy back. And then Oregon, I'm not going to lie, that one scares me. But here's the thing, okay? They are also starting a new quarterback this year. And they're trying to be perfect. And that's hard, right? And who knows, we could be the one that comes in and they stub their foot on, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for this team to really ruin someone's season that should be better than us. And I feel confident in the way that our roster is constructed, that we will be in pretty much every game we play. And I think we'll have opportunities to overcome a lot of these difficult teams.
So let me throw the number to you, because we got a bunch of ones we want to get into today. I think we could do a whole show on the schedule, which I actually think now that we're talking through this, we should in the future. I'm going to give you a number, though. So the schedule is a concern. Is it 0 to 10 for me? 10 being, yeah, that's a 5-alarm fire. 1 being like, nah, it's a nothing burger.
So when I look at the schedule, I want to put this in stability, because if I were to come out and say, "Oh, this schedule is nothing. It's 4. I'm not worried about it," and we go 6 and 6, 5 and 7, like, what does that say about us, right? Because if I'm right and the schedule's not that hard, then and we lose a bunch of games, then we suck, right? And so the way I kind of look at it is this: I think the schedule is a 7, at minimum, maybe an 8. And the reason I say that is specifically because I do believe that in this new Big Ten, we will have in the future more difficult schedules than this. There will be a year, just roll of the dice, where I think you'll play an Ohio State, a Penn State, a Michigan, an Oregon, a USC. There will be schedules like that in the future. And so I think that, to say that this is going to be the hardest we'll ever play, it's tough to make that call. But that said, again, all these teams are going through flux just like we are. And I feel like we really strengthened a lot of the positions we were weak, and we kept a lot of the things that we were strong at from last year. And so I think that puts us in a position to be better than last season. And a lot of these other teams, while they're trying to do the same, again, it's still tough to know where they're all going to be. And it's fairness to say it's tough to know where we'll be too. I just believe that we are in a really good spot in relation to a lot of these teams.
No, it's a good answer. I think for me, it's a 7 or 8. And just in the terms of how legitimate is that concern, I do think the schedule's real. I think it's a beast. I think it's tough. And I think it can beat you up when you have those 4 games in the middle of it. If you lose some guys in that stretch, which can happen, then you still have that back end with the Illinois, the Indiana, the Minnesota, the Washington. So I think it's like a 7 or 8. We're going to take a quick second here. We're going to come back, talk about the offensive line and why I think that Kevin Haywood injury may have a big impact this year. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is our incredible partner. Again, summer sports are amazing. They are in full swing. Baseball, I love betting on baseball at FanDuel because every day is different. Momentum shifts with starting pitching, and FanDuel is the incredible spot to do all that. But there's also golf, there's soccer action, and FanDuel is the best way to get in on all of it. The user interface is clean, it's fast, it's simple. The payouts are incredible. again, I mentioned it. Like I have friends that still owe me money that I'm never going to get that money. That's never a concern with FanDuel. They're going to pay you out when you win quickly, efficiently, hassle free. It's easy to use it. You can get your favorite matchups and every type of bet that you want: futures, parlays, teasers, spreads. It's all available over there. Quick, simple, easy, fast to use with great customer support. Right now, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. That's over at FanDuel.com. You will not regret it. All right, let's jump back into this with Curtis. Here's the second concern. Again, some of these, I just want to point this out. I don't think I did this segment one. I'm playing a little devil's advocate on some of these. Like some of these aren't necessarily my biggest concerns, but I think it's a good canvassing of where Badger fans are at. Offensive line. This one is actually a pretty big concern for me. I don't think that was a particular deep spot to begin with. I like a lot of the starters, but then you lose to Kevin Haywood at that left tackle spot. Now we're talking about shifting Brunner, who we all agree is probably a better guard. That's going to open up a spot at guard. Not to mention the fact that you don't really have a backup there or at tackle. Obviously, bringing Davis Hines in over from Central Michigan, he helps. There's a lot of youth on this team that's going to have to step up. To me, this is a big concern. This is one of my biggest concerns on this roster, man.
Yeah, let me alleviate that concern for you real quick,
Sure.
all right? Because this will be a couple key things here that I want to discuss. First off, Jeff Grimes. Now, I don't know how much Kansas football you watched, how much offensive film you've watched of them from last season. I've watched probably more Kansas football than I really needed to have ever watched in my entire life.
Love it.
A couple things stand out. One, they were not the most talented team in the Big 12 by any measure last year. I don't know what anybody would say about that. I don't. People say, "Oh, they got some guys." I'm telling you right now, they're still 2 and 3 stars on that team. Like they just, they do not have that talent. Their offensive line, especially, does not have that talent. They went toe to toe with an Iowa State team, one of the top defenses in the Big 12, and beat the brakes off of them. They ran more yards on Iowa State than any team had all season. Why? Why did they do that? Right? Iowa State beat Iowa last year. I mean, Iowa made us look stupid, but Iowa State beat them. So how did they do that? Well, it's how the offense is constructed. Last year, we got a first-hand look at how not to construct a run game in Longo's offense. Some of the angles he had those linemen take, they were beyond my understanding. I have no idea what they were trying to do. None of it made sense. Everybody was always over leveraged. It did not. The angles were all weird. They never really worked. That's why we could never get to the second level in any of our run games, except against a Rutgers or Purdue, who just have completely inferior athletes to what we put on the front. Well, now we're talking about a Big Ten Wisconsin offensive line who, spoiler alert, we have a better offensive line than Kansas does. Again, I don't think I'm really reaching at straws here. And we also have a tremendous offensive line coach. And so these two things together, along with the raw talent, we have a lot of raw talent. Again, it's young, but it's raw talent. I think that we're going to be able to move the ball efficiently on teams, aside from being able to just run them over, run into them, but getting them out of position. The one thing that Coach Ryan always talks about is that the difference in the linemen we had from Paul Chryst to today, we had to recruit athletic offensive linemen for Longo's former system, right? That's what we needed in order to run an air raid style offense. In Paul Chryst system, we just needed big bruisers. Well, we didn't really get the type of athletic linemen we needed to run an air raid, but our line is more athletic than what we had under Paul Chryst. And now you got to run them wide zone, you got them running counters, you got them running play actions, you got them running RPOs in a power downhill offense. I mean, this offensive line is tailor-made to run that system. And so that's why I think, it's going to be a problem. We're going to have to work with some people who don't have as much experience, but we have talent, we have big guys, we have a strong coach, and we have a strong system. And that's why I think our offensive line is going to be successful this year.
Listen, I think you can build around a Brunner, a Renfro, and a Malman. I love Blazek. So I don't really disagree with your overall point that this is a better unit than Kansas, and I like the young talent a lot. I think the problem is you're also going to be facing better defensive lines than Kansas pretty consistently with this schedule. And if one of those starters gets hurt, it's no knock on the young talent if they're not ready, but they may not be ready. And then you have to start scheming around things, which takes other parts of the offense away. So to me, this is like a 6 or 7 still. I think this is a pretty legitimate concern for the Badgers.
I would say that if we had Haywood, I would feel a lot better about this offensive line. There's no doubt that having a guy like that, losing a guy like that is a big deal. But at the same time, I also feel like, again, the way that this offense is set up, it's meant to get the defense moving sideline to sideline, and it's meant to get them out of position. It's meant to trick them, right? And so, again, there'll be some times where we lose some blocks. But the difference between Paul Chryst and Jeff Grimes is that Jeff Grimes is going to try to create space and go where the offense is not. He literally is doing what Longo always said he wanted to do. Go where the defense is not, right? Paul Chris said, you got a door. I'm just going to try to beat that door down with a hammer the whole game. And if it breaks, great, we win. And if it doesn't, then we're just going to get blown out by Ohio State or, Michigan or whoever we play that beats us that year. And that's where I think Grimes is going to be able to, again, last year when we played Alabama, they had that big D tackle that plugged up the middle. We couldn't move them. They had two of them. We couldn't move them. But we never had to get them to run sideline to sideline. They just stayed in the middle. You get them running wide zone left, wide zone right, back, boom, boom, boom. They're going to get tired. They're big dudes, right? There's a physical toll on you over the course of the game. And that's why, again, I think we'll be able to utilize our offensive line effectively.
So you're pretty low on this. Again, put a number on it. 0, no concern at all for you. 10, like this is 5 alarm fire.
See, this is going to be funny because I'm probably going to say about a 5, 6, probably about the same as you. Maybe a little bit lower, but I do feel very confident in what we're trying to accomplish with this line.
Let's hit the next one. A couple people, we put this question in Discord too. B Rabbit says quarterback. I like, or this might not be off Twitter. He says I like Edwards, but it feels like it could be a what if. If we could have got a Pribula. Fresh says football's pretty easy. If your quarterback isn't any good, you don't win. So my concern with Edwards, and again, this is where sometimes I'm playing a little devil's advocate. I actually like Billy Edwards. So I'm going to tell you right now, to me, this is like a 3-ish. It's not my highest concern. But I think the concern is Tanner Mordecai came in, right? And he had a more established at a lower level, but he had done more in his college career than a guy like Billy Edwards. Tyler Van Dyke came in, actually remarkably similar statistical numbers to Billy Edwards. If you look at completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio, Tyler Van Dyke is actually better than Billy Edwards. Yards per attempt, Tyler Van Dyke is better than Billy Edwards. And he struggled. I know he got hurt, but in those first couple games, it's not like Tyler Van Dyke was lighting it up. I know it's a different offensive scheme as well. There's context here. What do you say to the concern that another one-year portal guy coming in, he just might not be good again because we've seen this story for 2 years?
Well, this is the easiest question in the world for me, and it also goes to the Bo Pribula versus Billy Edwards conversation. We needed a veteran leader in the locker room. Pribula's never led a team, and he's never started, and so that's a gamble. A guy who's on the hot seat, you're not taking the gamble. Yeah, does he have potential? Absolutely, he's got potential. Did he make us look bad at the end of the game last year for Penn State? Yeah, he did. But Iowa's quarterback also made us look bad too.
Yeah,
he was 10-13, and it's not like he was a gunslinger by any means, right? So that list of quarterbacks made us look bad last year. Not that impressive to me, right? And so when I look at what Edwards brings, he brings composure. He's been in a significantly worse firestorm than this Wisconsin team over the course of his career when he was at Maryland. He's been on significantly worse teams than Tyler Van Dyke was when he was at Miami. What's your boy Brian Smith always talking about when it comes to receivers and athletes? Oh, Miami gets those receivers. These guys run 4.0 speed and get deep and do all these things. That was the team Tyler Van Dyke was dealing with. Meanwhile, Billy Edwards over here running for his life. Immediately, once they snap the ball, he's already running for his life, right? So, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you can say he had a worse season. I would also argue that Maryland was a terrible team. So you could put that on him. You can put that on the team. It doesn't really matter. The effect's still the same. And so when I look at bringing in Billy Edwards, you got a veteran leader. And here's the thing. Again, going back to Grimes, the offense is no longer quarterback dependent. Now, we need a quarterback to win, obviously. We need good quarterback play to win big games. But our offense is predominantly built on a run game, right? If we get the run game going, and then Billy Edwards can take us over the top with play action, and we can get to our outside threats, which both can take it to the house because of their speed. We have multiple guys in the receiver room that can take it to the house. That sets us up for a lot of potential success. And it takes a lot of the weight off Billy Edwards' shoulders.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you just said there, but I'm going to hit on the composure, the veteran ability. I love what he brings to the locker room, having talked to people. I think he's going to be a really nice addition. To me, this is like, it's not a 0 because we need to see him do it in Madison. It's a new quarterback, new place, new offensive coordinator. Those things don't always click, but it's like a 1 or 2 for me. I think it's a really nice pickup for the Badgers. It's not a big concern. I'm guessing by what you said, it's like a 1 or 2 for you as well.
Yeah, it's a 1 or 2, especially because our backup quarterback also has starting quarterback experience, right? That's huge. I mean, not to belabor a beaten point, and I know I was the biggest lock defender back in the day, but I would take at least what I saw from Daniel Neal in the spring game. He's locked but mobile, right? So at least you can move now, and he is quick. I mean, you saw him. He was juking guys. He was out in the open field making runs, like getting first downs on his own. So that's a big deal.
No, I think I agree with you. I 100% agree with you on that. We're going to take one more quick second. We're going to come back with the topic that I know Curtis was ticked off about last year, and I'm going to ask him why he thinks it's going to be fixed this year. If he does, that's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show. Quick second to say thank you for tuning into Locked On Badgers as always. Let me hit you with this one, Curtis. So I know one of the things that we talked about a lot last year was defensive rotations, defensive alignment, lack of a pass rush. Several comments, again, putting this up to the community from Devontae, defense line and defense as a whole. If I see 2 down defense linemen against Iowa again, equal acts. Another one here, still worried about our pass rush. That's from Go Badgers, uncertainty of pass rushers. Tressell's ability to stop the run and create a pass rush. Terry P. not sold on the defense. Deputy defensive rotations, decisions, in-game coaching. I'll just leave it there. I know we talked a lot about how frustrated at times we were last year, maybe with some rotation decisions, maybe with some alignment decisions. That defensive coaching staff's the same. So concern or not?
Well, here's the thing. It's not the same because we've added like 5 assistant coaches and we've shifted responsibilities around. So, for example, I think we talked about this before. I'll use this as an example. Reed was brought in as a recruiter, and you're seeing how that plays out, right? When you look at what these assistants are doing, I'm not saying this for a fact. I have no idea. I think you bring in Scott Powers to coordinate the defense, or at least set up the structure of the defense, because at Western Michigan they ran a 4-2-5. Well, what does it look like we're building when it comes to our defensive structure moving forward, right? That's why I think you do that. That's why I think you add a guy like that. On top of that, you also have an inside linebackers coach in Tuff Borland, who seems to be doing the on-the-ground work of actually being what would have been considered an assistant coach in the past. I'm not quite sure what Tressell's doing. Either he's A, fully focused on coordinating the defense, or B, kind of the symbolic manager of the defense. I'm not sure. Again, this is all speculation. I can't give you an answer to this. But what I would say is that, no, I think we made a lot of adjustments in order to better improve our defense. On top of that, one of the big things we ran into, and I think I hammered this point to death last year when it came to 2 down starting linemen. Like, the problem is we really only had 2 D linemen that could hold up in the middle like that. And then you had a freshman in Johnson. You had a pass rush guy in Elijah Hills, right? And then Benton was the only other guy over 300 pounds. And I think Kurt Neal was the other guy that played the most snaps. So when you look at what our rotation was, we didn't really have anybody. Well, now we have, 5 or 6 guys that can play interior and we can rotate through, right? You can go through a couple lines before you even get to Dylan Johnson. I think he's going to be a big factor this year. Mm-hmm. I know Rajiv and Justin were talking about Jamal Howard being also potentially a factor. Maybe, who knows, right? It could be his time to step up. On top of that, you still got outside guys like a Posa, right? Or not, I'm sorry, not Posa. Oh my gosh. Rieger, the inspirational quote-a-thon guy of the year. I watched him doing some cuts. His knee is fine. Right? You know what I'm saying? So could he get injured again? Absolutely. Right. But if I'm betting on anybody to come back from an injury, it's the dude that every single day is posting devotionals about how hard he's playing and how this is his only option and he's going to make it or die trying. Die trying is still an option there, but of anybody I'm betting on the team, I'm betting on him.
Mason Reiger could be the biggest X factor on this team this year.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and we don't even really count him when we talk about our predictions. He could be like a TJ Watt, at least in TJ Watt compared to 2016, right? And so, that's where I'm looking at these things. You got a Clayton who's looking like a young Herbig, only bigger and faster potentially. So there's a lot of different X factors that we can potentially rely on this defense. And on top of that, the big thing about having the number of D tackles is not that we got 6 studs that are all good. They could start on Michigan. Is that we got 6 guys we can rotate now. So you don't have to play the same 2-3 guys every single time you are playing a team that's running the ball. You can cycle them through. You can play 3 guys one game, you can start 3 guys the other. There's not a lot of drop-off between the top and the bottom of our D tackle group, which means that you can rotate them almost interchangeably. And that's the thing that's going to, I think, allow this defense to be in a lot more games longer and cause defenses a lot more pain than maybe we did last year.
I think it's all really well said. To me, this is probably like a 4. I think there is still some concern there because you have to see it. Let's be real. Lack of personnel or not, this team finished 134th in the country in tackles for loss last year. We weren't we couldn't have been the least talented team in the country, right? And so there's an element of the coaching needs to come up. But the other point to your point that I've talked about is last year I think there were 3 guys over 300 pounds on the wrestlers. There's like 9 now. I mean they're so much bigger and so.
I mean it's literally just a physics equation. You're talking about. You have to just move more mass now, which is just it's more stressful on an offense. Could it be done? Absolutely. But again, when you look at a lot of the offensive lines we're playing, I think the most experienced one of the top teams we're playing is probably Bama and then Oregon, or maybe Oregon and Bama. They both return a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's like Michigan is replacing a lot of their offensive line. Ohio State's replacing their offensive line. Iowa's replacing their offensive line. Like everybody's replacing their offensive line.
Minnesota is as well. I think Indiana has most of their guys back, but yeah. To your
Yeah,
point.
and so that's kind of what I'm getting to. It's like, so yeah, they got like the Oregon guy was on here, or you were talking to him on his show the other week, and he was talking about, yeah, we have offensive line strength of the team. We got one returning starter and 4 transfers. I'm like,
That too. He's so confident though.
okay, yeah, I mean they got talent, sure. I think like I said, Oregon's probably the most difficult game on the schedule this year. But it's like I don't know if I would be like, oh yeah, I got one returning starter and 4 transfers. Like we're gonna freaking be
Yeah,
the
I
best
thought
offensive line in the country. I'm like, I don't know about
well,
that.
low key, I thought that was gonna be the one spot in the podcast where he's gonna be like, because I was talking about the depth of our defensive line. I was like, I think we're gonna be a lot better there. And I knew that they were replacing 4 to 5 starters. I thought that was gonna be the one spot where he'd be like, yeah, maybe that's a concern. And by the way, I love Spencer. He's a great dude, but he was like, no, we're gonna kill you there too. I'm like, well, what
I
the hell?
I mean, first of all, you didn't kill us there last year, so I don't know. Like and
Yeah.
that was not a good defensive line. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think we'll see how Oregon plays. I like I said, I think Oregon's going to be our most difficult challenge, mostly because I think their defensive line is no joke. But
Mhm.
that's not the offensive line.
So grade this one for me. Where are you at on the? I'm gonna phrase the general question: the front seven and the coaching staff's ability to utilize the talent there.
Well, here's the thing: I can't make a call because the coaching staff at a lot of turns last year didn't do what I thought they were going to do, and then getting some context at the end of the season, there's a little bit more understanding as to why maybe that was the case. But um, when I look at this team this year, it seems to me, at least just based on vibes and conversations and communications of like things going on in the locker room, things going on outside the locker room, there seems to be a more willingness to need to use the depth that they have, because I think it is very clear at this point that if they don't, it's only going to hurt them. And,
Mm.
and when I say them, it's only going to hurt the coaching staff. It's people's jobs on the line at this point. If we're not producing, like this is the real world. Like you got to produce, or you're not going to be around, right? So I think that's where I think at the end of the day, whether or not fans believe or not believe that the staff's going to use the players correctly, I think the incentive this year, purely from a selfish coach perspective, is to use them correctly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think pressure changes a lot of things. You and I have talked about this too. The staff's under pressure. They know that, and they should be. This is a great program. It's a great university, and I think you're going to see probably a better product from the players and the coaching staff. Excuse me, because of that. Let me hit you with one more, and I'm not going to get to all of them because we go deep on these things, which is always great. I know that going in. My last one is Jeff Grimes himself. So somebody sent me this a while ago, and I've been kind of thinking about it, and they said something along the lines of, and that's why I'm including in this, and I think there's a valid point here. They said Kansas fans were not exactly brokenhearted when Jeff Grimes left. He also left his last year at Baylor was not exactly great. And even if Grimes is the guy, there sometimes is a significant learning curve when a new offensive coordinator comes in with a new quarterback. It might take a little bit of time for that to work. You don't have a lot of runway with this year's schedule in a season that's really, really important. So there's kind of a multi-layered question there. How quickly can this happen? And what if we've kind of talked ourselves into Jeff Grimes when maybe other fan bases aren't quite as high on him?
Yeah. So I can't speak to Kansas's football evaluation as a fan base because they've never actually been good except for 1 year, 2 years
Shot
ago.
fired.
So, in fairness to them, like, cool, I'm glad you have an opinion. Go back to basketball and we'll argue about that. But no, when it comes to Jeff Grimes, here's the thing. Again, as much Kansas film as I've watched, I've tried to watch as much Baylor and some BYU film as well. Here's the thing about what Jeff Grimes is doing versus maybe what Longo tried to do and maybe even what Paul Chris tried to do. Jeff Grimes' offense is rooted in an offensive system that is successful at the highest levels of football and every level of football. He's running a wide zone offense. That is one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. It's very adaptive. It's very modern in the sense that it can take concepts from other offenses, adapt it into the system, and then use them effectively. You also notice that when you watch Baylor, you watch BYU, you watch Kansas, you see how Jeff uses the players he has to their strengths. In other words, he had a lot more option with Kansas. They did a lot more of the same stuff they did under Kolnicki with Grimes than maybe Baylor did when he was at Baylor, right? And so that's kind of the cool thing about him. He can adapt a lot of what they did in the past and sort of mold his version of the U.S. zone offense around that. And so first you have an offense that's proven to work. And then you also have a coach that's willing to actually, again, evidence over substance, utilize the players the best they can. And then when you look at Kansas's record last year, they were 5-7. Okay. They beat the 3 best teams on their schedule. And oftentimes they beat them bad. And then the teams they lost to, It wasn't because the offense wasn't performing. Their defense gave up like 30 points a game, right? And again, when you watch their offense play, they can move the ball, they can score. I don't want to over belabor this point, but there were plenty of times where I'm watching, Jaden Daniels line up, chuck it, and miss a guy by like 10 yards.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And the guy is wide open. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, for people, that's Kansas's quarterback. Because I know there's a lot of people who just watch the Badgers, probably don't watch Kansas. So that's Kansas's quarterback last year. Was supposed to be better than he was. How much of that is on Grimes? Because he's not a quarterback's coach per se, but he is the offensive coordinator.
Here's my question: is it the coach's fault when you miss a wide open player by like 10 yards?
I think so. It's nuanced, right? You and I talk about this a lot. Context matters. It's all nuanced. If it continually happens, it might be on the coach to find better situations for the quarterback to succeed in whatever he can do. And no, it's not all on the coach either, for sure. Players have to make plays, but I don't think it's all on the player either. If someone continually fails in a spot, coaches have to find a different way to use those weapons.
Sure, but here's how I'll explain it like this. The offensive coordinator's job is to set up the offense such that it could be successful. You scheme guys wide open, right? You're doing your job. You're making an offense that forces you to respect the run and the pass. You're doing your job. You're making an offense that's constantly putting the defense into positions where they can't be right because you got a flat defender trying to decide between covering a tight end or a receiver going deep. You're doing your job. That's your job. We have a quarterback coach. His name is Kenny Guyton.
Yeah.
His job is to get Billy Edwards right. That's his job, right? So that's why when I look at this, like, do I think Jeff Grimes would be a good quarterback coach? No, I don't. Do I think – I can't even remember the guy's name right now. Do I think that the final offensive coordinator that Chris had, who was also our quarterback's coach, is a good quarterback's coach? No, I do not.
Bobby Ingram.
Do I think he would be a good quarterback's coach? No, I don't. Right?
Sorry, I don't.
So that's all I'm saying. Like, again, like, this is where it comes down to, like, are you putting your people in the best position they can to contribute to the team and success? And I think we are.
So we'll finish on this one. What's the concern rating with Grimes coming in? It feels like you're pretty bullish on this.
So here's the thing. I think our floor is significantly higher on offense. I still think that there are probably levels of experience that we don't have right now, namely O-line, namely running backs. I think we got a lot of talent, but not a lot of experience, right? And that matters. So I would say my concern with him is maybe a 2 at best, because I know that his offense works. And again, you go back, watch the games Kansas lost. It wasn't that they weren't moving the ball. They're moving the ball just fine. Their defense couldn't stop anything. Yeah. Or I swore once, I don't want to swear again. You know what I'm saying? So my grandma might listen to this. I gotta keep it clean.
I will point out too, I know his last year in Baylor was a little suspect. His first couple years of Baylor, he was really, really good.
You talked to the Baylor guy. You know what happened at Baylor.
Yeah, so I again, this is one where I'm playing a little more devil's advocate than I like Grimes. I like the hire. I like the floor that he's going to come with. I don't think he's a home run necessarily, but to me, this is like a 3. This is not.
I think he has the potential at Wisconsin. And again, you also got to think about fits, right?
Hmm?
Baylor and Kansas are not going to get Wisconsin offensive linemen. Like, we will always out recruit those two schools for linemen. I think that this is a school for him, like when he was at LSU or Auburn as the O-line coach, where he can have outsized success in comparison to if you were to place him at a Miami, for example, or at a USC, right? Well, maybe USC when Pete Carroll was there, but USC today. I think he would struggle there because they're not built that way, right? We are. And so I think we can take advantage of what we're naturally good at. With Grimes, it's an amplification effect. It's not like you get him, he is this good because he's this good at Baylor or Kansas. He's going to be very good because what he does is exactly what Wisconsin needs to do in order for it to be successful. And that's why I think you're going to see him do better than he did in the last 2 seasons.
That's a really good point. Like, fit really, really matters with this kind of stuff. He is Curtis Holland, the playmaker on the Discord. I want to say thank you to everybody tuning in, everybody for submitting some questions and thoughts on this. We didn't get to all of them, but we'll do another one at some point, I'm sure. Curtis, man, thank you for jumping in. Everybody tuning in, thank you for jumping in, making this one of your everydays, one of your first listens every day. Really do appreciate you, and we will definitely talk to you later on Wisconsin.